Hello, my loves. Welcome back. This is the story behind the story. I'm Sierra Melcher, founder of Red Thread Publishing. We are all about empowering women through writing and publishing. Today, I'm joined by Kayleigh Hanlin, and she's going to share her journey with us. She's going to tell you about who she is, how she wrote and co-wrote and published a book, and how it supports her business and supports her clients. And we're just going to go. I actually don't know exactly what we're going to talk about, but we're here and that's how we roll. Kayleigh, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Sierra, for having me.
Yeah, of course. I can't stand it when other people introduce people by reading their bio painfully on podcasts. So I'm not going to do that. It will be in the show notes and all of your links, and people can find you there. But I also recognize that we change continuously. So introduce yourself as you are today. Who do you want people to know you as?
Well, I love that actually, that introducing people in the moment, right? I love that we get to change. That's the best part about being human. So I'm Kayleigh. I have actually co-authored 2 different books. I own a business with my mother, which has been very fun. And we both still do all of that while we work our full-time jobs, like corporate world as well. And then I'm also a survivor of the congenital heart defect. I have 2 of them actually. So I've had 3 open heart surgeries, and I love to talk about how I have overcame a lot of that in my childhood. And I'm a personal development junkie. I've been around this all my life and I love it. I cannot get enough of this stuff. So that's me in a nutshell right in this moment.
I am so glad, because the bios that we write, agonizing, what's the right word? How do I get it into 150 characters or less? And you're like, no, that's not who I am. I don't, I am, like you said, continually evolving, especially personal development junkies. How could you possibly be the same thing day after day? That's the opposite. So welcome.
Exactly.
We are kindred spirits, I can tell. But I also really love my coffee, so I'm going to keep dipping in. I would apologize, except I don't do that.
Don't do that.
It's so good. There's, this year's taught me a lot of things, and one of them is just to enjoy the hell out of the things that I love. So, okay, I could totally dive into co-running a business with your mother, but I'm not gonna. That might be a whole nother conversation.
Different podcast.
Tell us about your 2 books.
Yeah.
I love the title, The J.O.Y Journal. So I want to hear about that one first, and tell me about the other, because I want people to know about what you do so that your book can serve them as well. But then we'll get into the how of it, and the birth of the project, and how you decided to do the thing, and how you got it from idea to out in the world serving.
I love that you said birth, by the way. I do not have children as of this moment. But it is definitely something that I, created and worked through. And so I'm sure that's the right word for it. So the first book was the J.O.Y Journal. The J.O.Y part stands for Just Own You.
Yep.
It is a guided activity journal meant for girls ages 6 to 7, all the way up to like 13. And I say 6 to 7 because they do really need a stable reading and writing, very basic level, but they should be able to read and write a little bit on their own, even if mom and dad or whoever is still helping. It just helps for them to be able to read through the questions and kind of answer on their own.
Right.
This is a book that I co-authored with my mom. And actually, that's why we started the business to begin with, is we both had very different life experiences that we kind of came together in my 20s later in life. And we kind of started talking about how we didn't really notice all the things that we had felt as young girls and young women, and how we could have wished we would have felt more joy or more happiness, or even just like you said, focusing on the moment when you're in the moment. We tend to just look so far in our future or get so anxious about the past.
Both. We're living like out here and like missing this.
So her and I were talking, and over conversations, we had just decided we wanted to teach young girls about this, about being happy, about being joyful, living in the moment, building that self-confidence and that self-love. And really, like I said, the just own you part, just owning yourself. It's so important because, and our world is such a great example, especially right now, when you get to be a busybody in other people's business. And I heard this from somebody else the other day. I kind of giggled when they said, if you get to be in the business of God or the universe or whatever you believe in, then nobody is minding your business. You're too busy being in other people's business or God's or universe, or insert your own religious beliefs, but you're not caring about yourself and how you're developing and who you want to be and what you're doing. And so we wanted to bring this message to young girls so that they could learn long before the rest of us who are learning our 20s, our 30s, our 40s, our 50s, and way beyond that, right? So we sat down and we were like, okay, how do we do this? And we thought a book is going to be the best way we can multiply this idea without us obviously having to be in the room or like this virtually with people. So we created a guided activity journal so they can go through different prompts, and it actually is different sections. So like the first is about the self, and then it goes into their general cohort or tribe, whatever you want to say, their family and friends. And then it goes into the greater world, their community, the city states, the country, and then the greater world that we all live in as humans. So they can do these different activities. Some of them are, sorry?
Micro to macro, like this.
Yes, exactly. And they can do activities that, some of them are go out and do something physical, and some of them are writing and drawing and artwork, and kind of ties all together. And then in the back, we have open spaces, because I remember as a girl, I loved to doodle on the side of my pages as a kid, especially when I was, supposed to be learning.
The thing you're told not to do, right? Stop doing
that.
You're defacing public property.
So we have a whole section of just blank pages so they can doodle, they can draw, they can use it as a safe space for their own personal thoughts and feelings and kind of reflect on what's going on in that moment. And then the beautiful thing about it is that years later, when they grow up or get older, it's like a treasure trove of like, almost like a time capsule of like what they've been doing in that moment and how far they've come. So that was the first book, was the J.O.Y journal.
Well, and I love that. So my daughter just turned 6. She's not on a reading level that she's like ready for this, but I'm like, ooh, I know what you're getting for your 7th birthday.
Yes.
Because little girls, for the most part, I mean, she is in the moment, right? She does know who she is. And I think we all had that when we were little, but we definitely lost it. It was systematically stripped from us from the age of whenever, definitely through adolescence and forever after. And the women that I work with in their 20s and 30s or 40s come up against this, like, who the hell am I? Who have I been being, right? Because I don't identify with this self that I've constructed. So I love, I think of your book as sort of like an antidote to the destruction that is adolescence for girls. You take it before you've lost everything, and like before you've lost yourself. I want to hear briefly about your other book, but then I want to go back to this idea of birthing, because I think it's really fundamental. So tell us really quickly about the other one. If you like.
So the other one actually came out in March of this year with 15 other authors and myself. We co-authored it's going to be a series now. They're going to start doing multiple people, but everyone got a chapter to talk about a time in their life where they really wanted to rise above and overcame something pretty devastating for most people. So it's called the Rising Sisterhood, Rise With Us. I'm going to read it because I don't want to screw it all up. It's very long. How to step into your power and change your narrative. So I wanted to make sure I said that correctly. So that was also another self-published venture that I got to be a part of with many different women from all walks of life and all over the globe. It was an absolute amazing experience to be connected with women who have had loss of children, who had parents who had mental health disorders and that they were abused, to just people who were new moms for the first time and realizing how hard that really is. because most people don't talk about that, or we as women
Right, we're
don't
just
get to
like,
talk
"Oh, it's
about
so
that. We're like, the
great.
kids are great. You don't
Yay."
talk about the fact that you spend 3 days yelling at your partner and wanting to punch holes in the wall
Or
and
that you
crying
haven't
in your
slept in like
bed.
9 months and
That
that's starting to have a physical impact on your mental health and your physical well-being. Yeah, that.
so it's definitely a book that you can read over time. It's chapter by
Yeah.
chapter. Each author offers a chapter, and you really can find someone in the book to connect with and say, "Oh
Yeah.
my God, I went through the same thing, girl." Like,
Yeah.
yes, and thank you for sharing your story because I needed to hear that.
Yeah. I love those multi-author anthologies and the contributions because you get so many perspectives on sort of a common theme. I hold women's circles as part of the empowerment process. And the thing that gets said most often is, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one. I can't believe you have this, exact same experience or the similar feeling or the and now I feel so much better knowing, because it's really isolating, and we have like the shame and this hiding of, if I'm the only one, then I can't tell my story. But when you get to read not only someone's, like struggle, but then how they navigate that, and here's what I learned, and I'm still okay, and I can like own that and step into the next version, like changing the narrative. It's so powerful. It's so powerful. So amazing. So you got to publish with your mother. You got to publish with women all around the world.
I did.
Both of those, I have participated in both of those kinds of projects myself, and so I love that we
I
have a
love this.
similar experience. And Red Thread does the same. So we support women to like get their stories out there, but we also, for somebody who's not ready to write a whole book, because it is very much like having a baby. It can be like 9 months of, this starts as just this sweet little idea, and then like it takes over your whole life and you can't walk and just have to pee all the time, metaphorically speaking. And then you have to like push this baby out into the world, this book baby. And the multi-author books are sort of write a chapter. You get to do this little part. It's like being an aunt. It's like babysitting for the afternoon instead of like having
Instead of raising them for the whole
doing the whole thing all by
thing.
yourself.
So
And so you get the whole experience without maybe the stretch marks, so to speak. Very metaphorical today, apparently. So because this podcast is always sharing stories, celebrating other women authors, spotlighting you, and like saying congratulations, first of all, but then offering something to our listeners who are aspiring authors, who are somewhere along the journey. What's something that you've gained, something that you learned and maybe would do differently or better next time? What nugget, just a tiny little piece that you want to throw out and say, like, here was my experience, and here's how I would definitely never do it again, or here's what I learned and wished I had known before.
Well, I will start with this information that even doing either one of these, I had a lot of self-doubt of like, well, why would anybody want to read anything that I write? Like, who am I to put my interest, my creativity, my story on a physical piece of paper and let it just be into the world? Who am I to say that this is how a young girl should journal, or who am I to say that my story is better than whatever? So if anyone, when you are going through this process, whether you're inspiring or in the thick of it, I think your story is valuable, and we all need to remember that. No matter who you are, what you look like, what you've been through, your story is 1,000% valuable and needed in this world, because just like you said, Sierra, there are so many people who think they're the only one, and they're not. I promise you, you are not the only one who feels that way, who has felt that way, who experienced this thing, who is trying to move past whatever. So getting your story out is you sharing your perspective of the world with everyone else.
Yeah.
And I think that is a beautiful thing. When we wrote the J.O.Y Journal, I think I mentioned that we still work full-time in our corporate careers that we love. And it took us 2.5 years to do this. So baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. But as long as you are consistent, I think anything is possible. And I think that's really what I took away from my whole process in both books, is to be consistent, whether that looks like 5 minutes every day or one day a week. It doesn't really matter, but consistency, continue writing, continue editing, continue creating, because that's what's going to get you to the bigger, better, best version of the thing that you want to birth in this in this scenario. So.
Yeah, when you're pregnant, you can't be like, I think I'll just get back to this later. I'm going to take a break.
Yeah, well,
there were some
that's a little different.
days I was like,
true.
but that but it's the same as like, it is constantly happening. It's constantly evolving, and that if you want to get to that destination, you need the structure. I'm teaching a women's writers course right now. That's actually very cyclical. It's about creating with the phases of the moon, rather than just, because we do live in a really masculine, do it this way.
Yes.
Sort of like, it's got to be created every single day. And then if you're already doubting yourself and then you're like, didn't do your 5 minutes today, then there's like, nobody wants to hear what I have to say. And I didn't like show up for my story, and you can collapse pretty easily under that. And so the cycle of writing with the moon is really cool. But what you shared of like, as long as you have a structure, like a consistent, doesn't have to be like the same every day, but if you have, if you've built the space for your creativity, then you can actually relax into it, and you're not spending most of your energy sort of wrestling with, when am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? Should I even do this? Does it like, and so that container for the creativity allows for you to get from the beginning to the end on whatever timeline. And so it's super valuable. And I'm really glad that you brought that up. And this doubt that we have, it comes up in almost every one of these interviews and conversations I have, because it's so predominant.
It is.
But
and you actually made a point just now. I'm sorry. You made a point about the patriarchal like world that we live in, or the masculine world. Like we do. And so that is BS, by the way, for anybody who is listening.
It wasn't clear. Let's make sure.
I spent my childhood being labeled as, fragile or almost like glass. Like I was too sick to do this. I couldn't do that. Adults telling me left and right what I could and couldn't do. Yeah. I just have to tell anybody listening, like, rip those labels right off, take yourself out of the box, because it doesn't exist. Those things are BS. You are more than the one thing people tell you that you are, or the two things that people tell you that you are.
Well, and we begin to internalize it, right? If you hear it a couple of times externally, we like, I don't even need to, as a protective mechanism for ourselves, we start to tell ourselves the thing that we don't want to hear the most. And then it becomes this internal dialogue, and somebody doesn't even need to say it to you anymore. And you're like, oh, I can't. Oh, I'm not. Oh, blah, blah. And we do that as a way of like sort of barricading ourselves against the hurt from outside. But that one voice, that internal voice, is the only one you can control. And when you recognize that, you can be like, oh, well, I can just shush that one. Yeah. And then see what I actually can do. Let's test this theory. I'm always a little contentious and sort of stubborn. And so if I can focus my stubbornness on like, let's disprove this theory. I think this is BS. I can do it. And using my stubbornness in a productive direction instead of, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah. Well, and the thing you talk about, like the voice in our head. So yes, we have a voice or image or whatever it may be for you as an individual, but it's like, I don't know, a negative Nancy, if you will. You have somebody kind of telling you all the things that you heard growing up, you heard in school, you heard wherever, but you also have an internal voice that actually is cheering for you the entire time as well. You got to turn that one up a little louder because that's your intuition. That's what's pushing you. That's what's telling you, whether it's a gut feeling or your body language or however it's telling you to do. That's the one telling you, you need to tell your story. You need to write. You need to move forward on this project that you want.
And that's what comes back to being in the present. because the
Yes.
intuition only works in the present. It's that whisper. If you
Mm.
are present, if you're slowing down, if you're not, because the negative Nancy, as you call her, like loves the past and she loves the future because there's so much doubt and anger and uncertainty and all of the stuff that she thrives on, like out there.
Mm-hmm.
But the intuition can't talk to you about the past or the future because it's just this present voice. I used to think that everyone, both, I thought everyone was like me, that everyone, they wanted to write a book. And I also thought that no one was like me. Both of these thoughts existed, coexisted, that like, I was the only one, right? I'm the only one and everyone's like me. Everybody must want to write a book. I don't think everyone wants to write a book. It's a very small number of people that have this like, oh, I want to. And so if you are one of those people wrestling with what we're talking about, it's like that one that, oh, I don't know, but maybe I should, and who I am. This is what I share with my authors, and you addressed it already, Kayleigh. Really focusing on who in the world needs your story, who is hungry to hear what you have to share, who is desperately seeking that advice, that wisdom, a tool to navigate something that they're struggling with.
Yes.
Because there's so many people in the world, very few people publish. They're hungry, especially now, for women's voices. The world is ready to hear what we have to say. And there's a lot of books out there. And this is why I opened my publishing company, actually. I was a high school teacher for a long time, teaching history. That stuff is like, so much of history is written about men, by men, for men. And even in the personal development field, I found myself reading some books written by men about personal development. And I was taking this advice and I was like, this was not written for me. This was so not written for me. This is absolutely written by the Italian man that I'm reading from. And I think Italian men should read this book. That's a great idea. I'm going to chuck this book as far down the block as I possibly can because it's not for me. Yeah. And like then I had a breakup moment and I was like, I am going to read only women for an entire year. And what I found from reading women's voices changed my life. But I want to make sure that there are more women's voices. And so obviously I do these podcasts. Obviously I want people to reach out to me if they're struggling with like, I think I want to write a book, but I don't know, right? Like what do I have to say? Who am I? Those are universal doubts. And there's ways around it, right? There's writer's block, there's all the fears, but there's ways around all of that. So I heard you say, like, notice the limitations and then burn it to the ground.
Yes.
leave it on the side of the road, right? Have a little pity party bonfire. My friend recently shared a term with me that is so great, and I need to share it everywhere. It's the itty bitty shitty committee.
I like it.
I like that it rhymes. I like that it makes it small, right? It's just this, I think of it as like they get this much of a Post-it, right? The itty bitty shitty committee. Yeah, go ahead, say what you have to say, but you have this much space. And then the rest of the three-dimensional universe, that's for that's to play in. The last thing I wanted to ask you about, because you have this full-time career, you and your mom are doing your own things. How has writing a book enriched you? Oh, this is a bigger question than I have 2 minutes for, but I wanted to ask personally and professionally. You have 2 minutes. Let's see what you can get.
All right.
Get away with.
How writing the book has enriched me. Yeah. Well, personally, I think just putting any of my creativity, any of my own writing, my story out there in the world has allowed me to both connect with people who I would have never connected with and provide other young girls and women a story that they can see themselves in.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I'm a very much a recovering like good girl, if you will. Like I'm a people pleaser. I wanted everybody to love me. And that's how I lived my life as a child. And so now I have these things written out there, and some people, agree and some people don't. And I think the fact that I'm able to handle my own, and again, like step into myself and just say, well, this is me, that's you, our stories are different, we can coexist together, I don't like hate you, right? So having and building a business kind of does that as well.
Absolutely.
Hearing the naysayers, the haters, the trolls, whatever you want to call them, and learning to like deal with my emotions on that is such a beautiful thing for me. And learning this as I go, it's like new level, new devil kind of thing. So like the further along in the business you go, and the more people you talk to, and the bigger the sales are, the more anxious, the more freaked out, the more, oh my God, who am I? Like I said at the beginning, who am I to do any of this? And so it has really allowed me to be like, screw that thought, I'm going to step into my power. Like I am worth it to do all of this and more. So that has really been extremely beneficial, both personal and business wise. The book itself, Business, is actually the reason we started the business. So we wrote this book, and then we were like, well, now what do we do?
People want to talk to us about this.
Yes. Yeah. So we built a business so we could sell the book and do small talks, big talks, whatever, to bring to young girls and young women and moms and dads and whoever else, like this ability to step into themselves and actually just give people the acknowledgement that it's okay to do that. Because I think our society really lacks it a bit. We, like I said earlier, we get labeled and we're supposed to stay in this teeny tiny little box, and you're not a box. And so we're giving you the acknowledgement and your power back by just saying it's cool to just be you. I'm good with you, I'm good with whoever you are. You want to show up today, that's great. And
figuring out who that is not it's not just a like that, it's a process. And if we don't give ourselves the space to do that, then we are in a box that somebody put us in and then we left ourselves in.
All right. So I had 2 minutes. How did I do?
You did great. No, you hit it out of the park, girlfriend. I sense that you and I could talk for much longer, and I hope that we will.
Yes, please.
Good. I love podcasts. I get to make all these new friends. And this is the puppy that likes to cameo in.
Hello, puppy.
Hello. Yes. Amazing. So what I hear is you learned not just what you were like, when we write, we learn what we're teaching in a different way, right? You learn it for yourself in a whole nother dimension. And then basically the doubts and the fears at every level, they're there. And so the question of like, who am I to do blah, 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 that question's going to be there forever. That question doesn't go away. The blah, blah, blah changes. Who am I to at this level? Who am I at this level? Who am I at this level? And I think the only answer that I'm really feeling, and it sounds like you're teaching too, is just show up, right? Like show up. And then that's who you are. And that's how we grow is by continually showing up in the face of the doubt and the fear. The doubt and the fear doesn't go away. It doesn't.
No,
the only thing is
but
like
every level you're inspiring somebody new. You're inspiring somebody else to go, I can do it too. Like she did it, I'm going to do it. Here we go. And you just make the world that much better, piece by piece.
And the thing that I love is the thing that I find most fulfilling is doing the thing that is impossible. I'm like, oh God, I did that impossible thing. That it's not just the doing of the thing, it's the reaching for the next thing, right? I have no idea how I'm going to go do that or be that or become that. But even more than the like, yay, I did it, which we tend to celebrate on an insignificant level, and I'm personally and then professionally learning to really celebrate a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But the fulfillment for me and for my clients, really, it comes from the trying, right? The who am I to? I don't know. Let's go figure it out.
Yep.
I don't have a good answer
Yep.
for that, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yes.
All right. If I don't wrap us up here, I'm just going to keep on talking to you forever. So I just wanted to thank you for connecting with me. Thank you for sharing your story with us, for writing your books, for doing that personal work so that other people can do their personal work, and for not letting the question of who am I to share my story be the thing that stops you from sharing your story. Thank you so much for joining us, Kayleigh.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You're going to find all of her information, including a very well-written bio and social media links in the show notes. You can always connect with me. I'm looking forward to hearing from you about any questions of your writing process, your publishing process, and all of my social media stuff is in there. Every week we bring on another female author to share some part of her writing or publishing journey. Have a beautiful day.